Hi there. In the battle against the novel coronavirus, the Chinese people are not alone. A young Israeli entrepreneur who is popular on Chinese social media has donated nearly 1 ton of medical supplies shipped from Israel to China. Meanwhile, an American comedian who has performed the Chinese stand-up comedy for years has just hosted a charity show in Boston to raise money for Wuhan. How have they experienced the epidemic? How do they see the difficulties facing China? And why did they decide to do something about it? To discuss these issues and more, I'm pleased to be joined via satellite from Tel Aviv by Amir Gallo, chairman of Infinity and Innovation Group and honorary president of the Israel-China Chamber of Commerce, his father, by the way, by Raz Gallo, founder of the global media platform YChan, and from Boston by Jesse Appel, founder of US-China Comedy Center. That's our topic. This is a dialogue. I'm Yang Ray. Now the first question goes to the father and the son. It's said that you and your team collected nearly 1 ton of medical supplies to ship from Tel Aviv to Hubei province, including more than 100,000 tons of masks. First of all, let me know what has inspired you guys to ship those medical supplies and help China fight against the novel coronavirus, and how did you manage to do that? I mean, problems of transportation these days are pretty hard, pretty tough. Why did you succeed in shipping those supplies from Tel Aviv to Huanggang, yet another worst hit city in Wuhan, in Hubei province? The son, please. Raz?
Yes, so China has been our home. Yes, I'm Raz. Thank you so much for being on CGTN and Dialogue. We're from Israel originally, but we've been living in China for almost 12 years. Half of my life I've been living in China.
So you can speak some
thanks to this man who brought me to China many years ago, we managed to, yeah, we can speak. I learned Mandarin and I studied here. I started a company here.
So,
I met my best friends here.
Wuhan, 加油湖北, 加油中医关系和友谊, right?
And 对对对对加油中医关系友谊 And it's because of that connection to this place that when we see that China is in trouble, or any city or any place needs our help, and we can do something about it, that we didn't even think twice. It was a very natural thing to help our friends back in China. And luckily, due to my father and also to the efforts of a lot of Israelis that love China like us, we managed to really collect a lot of donations in a very short time and gathered more than 150,000 medical equipment, including masks, gowns like medical equipment, and also gloves. And that has been all shipped to China. But obviously, as you said, we met a lot of troubles over the way because a lot of flights got canceled the moment we got all of this stuff, and we had to deal with a lot of crises on the way. But I think because of our determination and the partners we had in Israel and in China, we managed to eventually get on the plane and ship it first to Guangzhou and then to Hubei, exactly to the hospital in Huanggang, which was in need of exactly the supplies we found. It was a very tough process, and we're really happy it happened. Yes, this is really what we've been through in the last few days.
Amir, like father, like son, how did you help your son?
Well, it was an amazing process, to work together with him. We allocated in different locations in Israel the medical equipment, and the key point was to convince them to sell and to give us in order to ship to China. The demand was immediately huge from Israel internally and from China. And basically, by the fact we represent the whole industry in Israel, it was convincing enough to have them sell to us. And then we needed to communicate with many partners along the way to make sure it will arrive to the right destination with accurate amount and not have any bureaucracy issue in the way. And luckily it succeeded by helps from the government, helps from the carriers, and a bit of luck.
Amir, You know, given the adversity of how the West as a whole looks at the image of China due to the mounting tensions between the two biggest economies, was it also difficult for Israeli entrepreneurs to reach a consensus about the humanitarian relief?
Well, I think Jewish people are very sensitive about this issue of helping a time of need. There is a long history of doing so. And we insist on separating political issues or any leadership-related issues from the humanitarian aspect. So we pushed very clearly all the Israelis and the government to understand this is no time to think complicated thinking. It's just very simple. There is a need and we need to help, and we should and must do everything. And given the tradition in this country, it was quite smooth.
Yes, given the historical background of Red Cross International, few would believe that humanitarian assistance would be politically motivated. So you are politically correct, Amir. Thank you so much. Question number 2. A recent event that took place in Israel, in Jerusalem, went viral on the Chinese internet here. It's gathered together by Israelis, and including some of the Chinese diplomats. People in their thousands gathered near the Wailing Wall to say prayers to the Chinese. Is this true? Tell us more about how the Israeli people, particularly those who have the faith, the religious beliefs, expressed their strong sympathies at the defining moment of our bilateral friendship.
Yes, this event happened actually yesterday in Jerusalem, where thousands of people gathered in the Western Wall, which is the most holy place for the Jewish people, and in order to pray for the health of China, the health of the world, and come together to show the support and friendship between the Jewish people and the Chinese people. What I want to add on this is that actually in the last 2-3 weeks, since the breakout of the coronavirus, in Israel, in many communities, not only in Jerusalem, also in Tel Aviv, and in other cities, a lot of people have made efforts to help, to show support. And it's been something, I think, that's deepened into the historical relations between our people. We have a lot of China supporters and lovers here in Israel, and we know, as my father said, at the time of hardships, we know when to stand up. So seeing so many people coming in different cities around Israel, and to be able to be part of it, because we were also in all these events ourselves, it was really, really incredible. Me, myself, actually, and my father, we went to the Western Wall a few days ago, actually, more than a week ago, to make our own prayers to China, and because we do think it really can make an impact. And yes, I think this just shows that no matter how far you are, how much of the distance, you always feel close to our Chinese friends.
And we should remember the support from China, especially in World War II, and actually also in World War I, in Shanghai, Harbin, Tianjin, Ningbo, when China helped Jewish people in time of need. And this should not be forgotten. We actually see this as part of a long-term kind of close relationship with the Chinese people.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. By the way, I interviewed the daughter of the Chinese Schindler, Mr. He Fengshan, who is the general counselor of the KMT government during the Second World War, and he was able to save 2,000 Jewish lives in the darkest days. And I thank you so much for having this warm memory about this chapter of the Second World War history. We also gave our condolences every year without exceptions to commemorate the Auschwitz or whatever concerning the fate of Jewish people under the tyranny of Nazi Germany. Now, let me ask you very quickly, Amir and Raz, how does the Israeli public think of the outbreak of the novel coronavirus, given so many stories spiraling around the world about, whether this is human to human, animal to human, is it laboratory boiled? Is it a man-made mistake or whatever? So there are rumors going around. I'd like to know how does the general public in Israel look at this event, and how do the Israeli media react to the emergency call by the WHO?
I think the Israeli media and the Israeli people are focused more on the internal aspects of things rather than why it was caused and how it was managed. The thing in Israel, there are many measures taken in order to be prepared when it arrives to Israel, which it hasn't yet, luckily. And people think about the different Israelis, stuck in different places and how to help China. The different rumors that run in the internet have really no effect. We don't feel Israel is a place where people really care about rumors. They really look at the reality and what can be done to protect the people here in Israel and how to help China. In that sense, it's very different from other countries.
Thank you very much. I wonder if the negative impact of coronavirus upon the investment and the economic cooperation between these two economies. But let me get to Jesse. Jesse's standing by in the United States. He's a famous comedian who's been doing stand-up comedy in China for years. And he's back to his country to do filming of a comedy. But this is not the moment to show your talents of a comedian. But let's say something to cheer up the morale. Let's talk about, first of all, the charity show that you hosted in Boston, and how much money did you raise?
Sure. Well, we're still counting because we're actually still getting donations. It was not something we expected, but a lot of the people who saw the show in the next day, 2 days, 3 days have gone back and raised some money themselves. So we think that we raised over $10,000 US in one night for this charity show.
And what's the image of this novel pneumonia for a majority of either American netizens or viewers at this moment? I mean, could it be compared in parallel to H1N1 that allegedly broke out in the United States and that led to the killing of up to 300,000 people? Many therefore compared this novel pneumonia or epidemic in Wuhan to, a flu instead of a severe respiratory disease. I'd like to have your thoughts about the nature of the epidemic.
Sure. Well, I think for most Americans, we're very fortunate that we haven't had a lot of people infected or haven't had a lot of people killed from the virus here. Right now, I feel like from a health perspective, we're hoping that it remains that way. From a mental perspective and on the internet, I think people are afraid. This is similar to, I think, around the world. We're worried that things will get worse. But right now, people are trying to balance that fear with the reality of the fact that in America right now, we don't have too many confirmed cases, and the cases that we have are mostly in quarantine. So if everything continues to be that way, hopefully then America can turn its attention even more to helping the people who are infected in China, and we can keep our population healthy as well, which would be great.
You know, your touching story about the charity show somehow reminds me of the Flying Tigers who assisted China in the darkest days of the Second World War in our common fight against the Japanese invasion. Wow. So you're one of the Flying Tigers, right? Thank you so much.
Well, that's very high praise, I think. Going on stage and performing is maybe a little bit different than facing down bullets, but I think this is the reason that we did the show, though, is that we all do what we can do. I'm a comedian. I like to make people laugh. I've spent the last 8 years now in Beijing doing xiangsheng, toguoxiu, all sorts of performance and making people laugh in China. And when I got back here to America and figured out that I couldn't actually get back to China to perform, I felt very nervous and I felt very upset, and I wanted to find a way to do what I can do, which is make people laugh and have that kind of be something that brings people together. And when we did the show, not only the fact that we were able to raise money for victims in Wuhan and in Hubei, but just the fact that we got Chinese people and American people, and we got Jewish people as well. I'm Jewish as well, and we had a lot of people show up from our temple. And we had all these people in the room together, watching a show, laughing together, releasing a little bit of that stress, and to raise money in a way that brings people together was very rewarding to me, and I hope that it winds up being something that we're able to help out even more people down the road.
You know, Jesse, you helped me a lot in developing a better understanding about how people should get relaxed under adverse circumstances, given the huge impact of the COVID-19 epidemic. But don't you think people have somehow overreacted? Do you think some of the stories have been overblown and people need not to be so worried? However, this doesn't sound politically correct if I had said so somehow in China. But I'd like to have your immediate feedback about the human feelings at this moment.
Well, I would say this. I mean, it's a scary thing. Whether or not the actual reality of the virus and the kind of fear related to the virus, exactly how they're related, it's going to be different for every person. And I don't want to tell people their feelings are wrong or invalid. But I do think that if we have our fear get so bad that it becomes worse than the virus, then that's obviously a bad thing. So I think that maintaining a sense of humor about things is important. Obviously, this is not to say that there's anything funny about the virus. That's not funny at all. But while people are in this state of fear, having the ability to look at the world and say, you know, it's bad, but it's going to get better, and it's only going to get worse if we're just angry and scared all the time. Having a little bit of comedy and a little bit of humor is very important for maintaining that grip on reality.
By the way, next time, if you were available, I'd like to do an interview about differences, if any, between British humor and the sense of American humor, if any. But let me ask you, earlier this month, Jesse, the U.S. government imposed new rules around travel from China as infections of the novel coronavirus continue to rise, although to a lesser degree. What do you make of the response to of the U.S. government? Is that overreacting? Because the flights to and from Wuhan and from China to China have all been rejected, and refusal has been granted to through the State Department to all those who would come from China.
Yeah. I don't know. I definitely don't like the fact that you can't travel from China to America. I mean, in general, my idea of the world is the more we can share with each other and the more we can travel, the better the world's going to be. During the time of crisis, I think it probably has more to do with logistics than anything. America is a huge country. It's got a lot of airports. I think rather than set up an enormous system to check everybody, they may just be denying everybody. But the U.S. government is going to do what the U.S. government's going to do. As a comedian, my job is to do the best I can to make some people laugh and maybe help some people out along the way. And, you know, unfortunately, I don't have any direct phone line to the U.S. government to tell them to do anything.
A lot of video clips are going viral these days when so many Chinese, almost all of them, have been confined to their homes, and they have to watch, they end up watching movies, television drama, so on and so forth. Now, one of them is produced and presented by an African-American. He was comparing Ebola to the Wuhan novel pneumonia, but that also aroused a lot of laughter from the Chinese audiences. But let me go back to these really friends.
Yeah, Trevor Noah.
Raz and Amir.
Yeah. Mm.
Raz and Amir, you know, a lot of misinformation is going on these days, and the WHO has labeled the spread of fake news on the outbreak an infodemic. So why does the misinformation always spread so quickly on social media? What is the best way, in your perspective, in your observation, to tackle the online rumors?
Well, in the information age and the internet age, information spreads really fast, and because anyone can post anything, and some stuff that are not true get picked up. And sadly, in such crisis that's so sensitive, and it's so important to know the truth, we end up having a lot of fake rumors that really make people emotional, angry, and sometimes unreasonable, and it leads to sometimes racism, discrimination, and also fear. And I feel like what we can do is that we just need to be more and more rational and look for reliable sources of information. Not believe anything you see right away. Try to be more attentive, more careful, more knowledgeable. And I think, like, just in Israel, I saw a trend that when the coronavirus news broke out, there's been a lot of so-called fake news. However, as time went by, now it's already maybe second or third week in, more and more people seem to be a bit more calm about it because there's better information that's been screened. And I believe that as things go on, we will just be able to be more clear about what's going on, and people will fight the fake news phenomena more and more.
Amir, due to known reasons, ever since the end of the Second World War, Israel has lived under adverse circumstances with so many Arab countries. By the way, we have a very good relationship with Muslims and Arabs in the Middle East, but your country has been lived under hostile stare for decades since the end of the Second World War. Now, do you, for example, under the state of emergency, have the involvement of the government in setting up something like firewalls to prevent the spread of misinformation, so that people would not feel panic, and they would not be scared, so that the government would effectively mobilize resources of whatever kinds? China is a different country, by the way. I'd like to know how the Israeli government would react to panic, to fears and the rumors.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. Israel has to deal with news coming from different sources and sometimes intervention from outside of Israel. The way it's being handled here is just by very quickly come out with official government or formal announcement about the reality. And with time, people believe the formal announcements, and they view the kind of these news coming out of nowhere and reaching as fake news. And I think the key point for Israel is to very quickly respond on anything that seems fake, define it as fake. For example, last night there was a spread over the social media and WhatsApp that some people died in Israel from the coronavirus. Well, immediately the Ministry of Health and the Foreign Minister issued saying this is fake news and nothing like this happens. So I think the best recommendation we can learn from the Israel side is a very fast formal respond announcement, and also defining things that are wrong as fake news. People believe it.
Had President Donald Trump said it's fake news, I believe Democrats would have reacted differently. But the story of Israel is very different. As an internet celebrity, Raz, in China, what's your view about the social responsibility that comes with notoriety, especially during time of crisis?
Well, I think each one of us, no matter what we do, who we are, where we're from, we should feel a responsibility to help others during a time of crisis. And I think it's something that in my family, in my traditions, I was brought up this way, to help others. It's also really deep in the Jewish culture, in our Jewish religion as well, where we believe that giving and helping and being responsible for your family and also others is very important. So I have been all across the years where I create content online, we've been doing a lot of videos that show this different, unique size of society and how we can help make people live better, and also in the time of crisis stand up for them. So we will keep being like this, and I hope it inspires more people to see that no matter what you do, you can always make a difference if you just put efforts into it. You can be socially responsible and help others in crisis. And that's what we learned.
Yeah, and internet celebrities do have a huge impact in recent years, and they do have a responsibility also on the content side, which means make sure that they voice their opinion if things are wrong, and they voice their opinion to the positive side. It's very easy to get negative sides. It's more difficult to come from the positive, and the media company that we have is always focusing on the positive side. We bring technologies from Israel, we bring content, and how we view China from always the lively things. And that creates a better feeling for the people, and we do recognize the responsibility of how we impact the society.
Thank you very much, Raz and Amir, the father and the son, for your very warm comments and insightful analysis about the fears, rumors, panic, and reasoning. Thank you so much. Let me go back to Jesse. Now, Jesse, the fears of the outbreak have fueled the xenophobia. As a wave of panic spreads worldwide, should we be worried about the rise of anti-China sentiment? What should be done to halt the spread of xenophobia surrounding coronavirus?
Well, I think that we are starting to see some unfortunate things come out with xenophobia all around the world. And I think this is the chance for people see these sort of things happening. And I've been happy that the anti-xenophobia responses have been so strong on the internet and also in our communities. I've seen a lot of articles and a lot of videos about making sure we remember that we're all in it together as human beings. And the people wearing masks are wearing them not just to keep healthy themselves, but to stop the spread of the virus from getting to other people. Wearing the mask is really a selfless thing. It's helping other people. And as more people understand that, I think that my hope is that the incidence of xenophobia will decrease. The virus is actually really interesting. It's almost like an alien invasion in that if you look at it the right way, it gets all of the humans together. And so my hope is that even though there are some xenophobic incidents that occur, what these incidents cause in the long term is for people to look and realize that actually all human beings are in it together, not only on the virus, but in general in life as well.
A few days ago, Jesse, on February the 3rd, the Wall Street Journal published an article written by a columnist, Walter Russell Mead, titled, "China is the real sick man of Asia," with the subtitle, "Its financial markets may be even more dangerous than the wildlife markets." Whatever the author's issue with China, it's quite shocking that he uses such a headline referring to the situation in China where millions of people are suffering from the novel coronavirus. What do you make of the intention and the impact of that paper?
Sure. Well, I don't think that's an appropriate headline. I don't like it. I think especially in times of crisis, we need to be coming from a view of empathy, looking to support other people rather than tear them down. And also, even though a lot of Americans, their most direct relation with China might be the economy, this is not, the economy is going to eventually recover. The economy is going to have ways of working it out. This is a time to think about people and not to think about money. And if we're thinking about money, it's because we can use money to help people. So I think that people who are upset by that article have a reason to be upset. But I think that focusing on the negatives is also not so good because there's been a lot of positive support as well from both the American people and also the American groups that work in China. American companies have also donated a lot of money to the causes in China, and we can only hope that we can fight through this problem together.
Yes, indeed. We are very appreciative of the humanitarian relief that is coming from the United States, mostly from the NGOs. And by the way, my most favorite comedian is Johnny Carson. I hope you're going to be yet another Johnny Carson.
Oh, yeah, Johnny Carson.
Yeah, he said to someone performed his role in the White House in the capacity, in the head of Ronald Reagan. Who's who? Who's Hu Yaobang? So that kind of pun, that kind of joke went viral those days on the American television shows. Thank you so much, Jesse, for being with us. Raz and Amir, thank you so much. See you next time. Goodbye.